Hey friends, Dean here with some exciting news to share. You can now buy us a coffee. That's right. You can help support independent content creators like us by becoming a member of the 3324 Green Room at buymeacoffee.com/3324. Our episodes will always be free and that will not change, but your support at buymeacoffee.com/3324 will help us continue to bring you the best in music and movie podcasting, in our humble opinion. As a Green Room supporter, you'll not only have our undying gratitude, but you'll also be able to vote on which episodes we record and receive other perks for as low as $3 per month. That's the price of a cup of coffee. There's absolutely no obligation, and nothing about the show will change. It's not going behind a paywall. Go to buymeacoffee.com/3324 for all the details. The link will be in the show notes of every episode as well. We'll see you in the Green Room.
In this episode, we're sitting down with recording artist Kurt Stevens to talk about his new EP, Polaroids, and his new single, 65. Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. Another episode, hot and ready, right out of the oven, delivered to your favorite podcast provider. If you're new to the podcast, go ahead and give us a follow, because then you'll get notified when new episodes come out each and every week. Like clockwork, we lay them out there. We've got a very special episode for you. I'm super excited to welcome Kurt Stevens to sit down with us and talk about some of his new music, a lot of new music. So, Kurt, welcome aboard.
How you doing? Thanks so much for having me.
I'm doing great. It is really a pleasure and an honor to speak with you. I've been listening to your EP a lot, and we're going to get to that. And your new single, 65, which you just released like about 2 weeks ago, give or take, right?
Brand new,
Yeah.
fresh off the press.
Yeah. But before that, I wanted to meet with Kurt a little bit earlier, but he was a little busy. He was doing something else. He was hosting the Pilar and Guitar Writer Session. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what you were doing with that?
Well, I grew up in South Florida and spent a lot of my time going down to the Florida Keys on the weekends, go down there and spearfish and dive and fish. And it's just one of my favorite places in the whole world. And I'm so lucky to be able to spend my youth growing up down there. And, I have a lot of roots there and kind of have been growing alongside of a great rum company that started about 10 years ago, maybe, called Papa's Pilar and the Hemingway Rum Company. And Papa's Pilar is inspired by Ernest Hemingway. His boat was called the Pilar and his nickname was Papa. So they created this rum brand based in Key West. They have a beautiful distillery down there. And so much of their brand is about storytelling. And as a songwriter, that's essentially what I do. So we partner up every single year during the BMI Songwriter Festival. And I host a couple songwriter events during the festival at the distillery. And this year we had a Friday and a Saturday, 3 songwriter rounds each day. And we had all these great artists and writers come in. And a lot of people ended up just popping in. We probably had 9 or 10 different #1 songs get played by the people who wrote them during my round. So it was a really awesome experience. We're trying to grow it a little bit every single year.
So is that an instructional kind of event? Is it a collaborative event?
So it's put on by BMI, which is the performance rights organization that represents songwriters. But it's a performance event. It's for songwriters to get to play their songs where, normally if you go to a concert, say you go and you see Kenny Chesney, a lot of the songs that you're hearing him sing are not written by him. He's a great writer as well. Kenny's an incredible writer. So this festival sort of highlights and gives the songwriters an opportunity to perform their songs for the public. So people buy tickets, there's ticketed shows, and then there's free shows that you could just walk up and listen to. So it's really, it's pretty much just like any other music festival, but it's the songwriters that are singing the songs.
Well, what did you have to do to prepare as a host of this? Was it your first time hosting?
No, I had done it last year as well.
Okay.
I've hosted all sorts of events throughout the years.
So not as nervous as you might have been the first go around because you knew what to expect?
I really don't get nervous with any of this stuff. I mean, that's the story I could tell you, but there's like for me, it's all fun. I'm really comfortable being in front of people, being on a stage, meeting new people. That's sort of a huge part of my job is, the reason I do this is to connect with people through music. So this is just an opportunity for me to do it on almost a more casual basis. I just have a microphone in my hand and I'm talking to a bunch of people like they're all my friends. So I wasn't nervous. I'm lucky to have a great network of people here in Nashville. I have a couple buddies that run a company called Country Connected. And every single week they put on events here in Nashville in different bars and venues, and they book up and coming songwriters. So for me, I was just like, hey guys, let's get together and let's put together an awesome schedule, an awesome lineup of up and coming writers, a lot of which who are now having massive success. Like I said, there was a bunch of number one songs performed. We had Tim McGraw. We had an artist, a writer. His name's Tim Nichols. He came. He just popped in and played. He wrote "Live Like You Were Dying" for Tim McGraw. It was like he just happened to pop in. And we had some other guys sing some Morgan Wallen number ones and Bailey Zimmerman number ones and all these awesome writers. So I'm just lucky to have a really good network to just plug in, and we just plugged and played. It wasn't hard at all.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like just kind of almost more like a hang of just people, of like-minded people, kind of helping each other and
100%.
getting exposed to getting their material exposed in a different way than having to go through and have an artist find it and then record it and then hope that it becomes something bigger.
So for us as writers and artists, as not everybody there is an artist writer. I'm an artist and a writer. But for us, it's really an awesome networking opportunity. That's kind of why we go. Because I sang some songs with some writers I hadn't heard their stuff before, and we're like, wow, we should collaborate. So it's a really awesome networking event, and obviously Key West is just a great time and a beautiful place, one of my favorite places in the whole world. So yeah,
awesome. Speaking of networking, how I came across your music was on social media.
Yep.
You started showing up in my feed, and it kind of kept on showing up, and I'm like, you know what? Let me click on this and see what's going on, and I immediately was kind of enjoyed everything I was hearing.
Yeah.
How important is social media nowadays for art? The music business is very different now.
Yeah.
Labels, people self-produce, self-promote, and just self-distribute their stuff. Mm-hmm. So how important is social media for you for getting your music out and finding new fans and interacting with them?
I mean, for me, it's pretty much everything. Because I don't have a label paying for the classic promotional ways. I'm not on a radio tour doing interviews like this all over the country with the radio shows every day. I'm not doing any of that right now. Hopefully I will. I know I will soon. But social media right now, it's the best way to get out there. But it's a catch because it's so oversaturated now. When I got started 10 years ago is pretty much when I first started playing live. I've played 1,244 shows now. I've counted in the last 9 or 10 years. So I've paid my dues actually performing shows and being out on the road, and kind of I've been playing music since I was 4 years old. But the social media thing has opened up music and the pursuit of a music career to people who have really never played a show, or maybe just love singing in their car, and they can go on TikTok and post a video, and people love who they are. They love their sound, and they can create a career like that. So it's a good thing because it's a free way to try to get exposure, but it's also a bad thing, not a bad thing, but it's tough to get that exposure because of how oversaturated it is and how many people are trying to chase this dream of being a professional musician now. You almost have to get the real numbers that I've seen. You almost have to pay. You have the good budget for advertising to make a dent. But obviously, it's not all that, because we're talking right now, and I posted on Instagram or whatever it was, and we have this connection, and you found my music. So for me, that's everything. That's why I post every single day. I try to connect with people as much as I possibly can, and social media is really a great way. Great way to just get in front of the whole world. You gotta stay on top of it because it isn't easy. And like I said, there's so many videos that a lot of the ones that I post, most people won't even see because the feed is, the algorithm is designed in a certain way where if you don't get the viewer to watch the first 3 seconds or first 5 seconds, you could have the greatest video ever. I could have just written "Let It Be," but it doesn't matter. So there's a lot of there's a lot of playing around with. Are you just creating music and like, here's my song, or you also have to become almost like a content creator where you're able to suck people in and keep them watching that video, because that's how that video is going to actually be shown to most people.
Yeah, so, I feel you. As you know, for what we do also is to get you almost have to have a second, not a second career, but a second level of understanding.
Yeah,
the algorithms. What kind of titles grab people? What kind of shorts will grab people? And like you said, getting a lot of hits right in the beginning, and then that kind of keeps it afloat.
Yeah.
Speaking of you posting daily, safe to say that your second passion is cooking.
Yeah,
I saw a lot. There's also a lot of cooking, a lot of Kurt in the kitchen.
Yeah, that's something that I didn't really think much about that. I cook all the time. Living in Nashville, I don't have access to the beach and the water and my little boat that I have in Florida that I grew up with. So I've kind of developed a few other hobbies. I love to golf. But here, when I have, on a Sunday afternoon, or if it's like a Tuesday night and I've been singing demos all day, or, working on my music all day, my way to unwind is to cook. And I love to cook for my friends and family and people who support me. Even music industry people that I meet, for me to be able to, instead of saying, hey, I'll take you to coffee, right? Hey, come over to my house. I'll make you some homemade pizza. It's just a really cool thing. I make homemade sourdough bread. I make homemade pasta. I got Sam's restaurant in my blood,
Yep.
The Italian cooking. So I do cook a good bit. It's kind of my way to give back to my family and friends. And I really just enjoy it. Kind of de-stresses me,
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Like I said, and it's refreshing to see different content from creators also, that they're not just kind of just pushing one thing, that they're kind of, here's some other things I do. And that kind of, I think it helps to connect creators to their audience as well, that it's not just, just listen to my music, that's all I care about. Well, here's some other things I do. I'm a real person.
That's it.
I have other interests and other hobbies, and I'm just like everybody else, but this is, I make music for a living, and this is how, and it's another way to connect.
Yeah, that's 100% it. And that's honestly a couple of friends of mine. Like, I think I did it, not even thinking about it, a few times. I posted, check out this, whatever. And then I had so many people like DM me, like, this is awesome. Like, you got to keep doing this. Like, I love watching you cook. Like, you're so good or whatever. And like, I don't even, I just do my thing. I don't even think about it, So I was like, all right, well, I guess if people like it, I'll give them what they want.
Maybe it's time for a second account where it's just the cooking.
Maybe.
Just the cooking
see.
videos.
We'll see. I'm still trying to grow my account. I don't have as many followers as I feel like I should. So I'm working on it.
Well, to that end, we're going to put a link in our show notes directly to your Spotify page.
Awesome.
Which has everything there.
Yep.
It's got all the stuff you've done previously, all your singles. I appreciate, as a partaker of Blue Moon, I appreciate that you wrote a song.
Yeah. Once in a Blue Moon.
Saluting Blue Moon, and I'm like, I love it. But yeah, there'll be a link in the show notes. Go check out Kurt Stevens. There's so much great stuff there to go through. And yeah, let's get into what connected me to reach out to you is this EP, Polaroids.
Yeah.
First of all, how is this different than stuff you've done before? And there is a difference, obviously, because there's a specific story attached to this.
Yeah. So Polaroids is sort of like the way I see it creatively as the artist is, it's like kind of in a sandwich of my music and my career. Before Polaroids, songs like, Sunshine State of Mind and Once in a Blue Moon, sort of songs sort of tied into my Florida roots. And then Polaroids is more of like sort of my emotional side as an artist, where I went through a breakup. It's been 6 years now, 6 years ago. But I was with a girl, and we were, together for, 4 or 5 years. And we moved to Nashville together. We had a little 2-bedroom apartment together. Her mom set up my parents on a blind date. That's how my parents met. Like, we just had this little fairy tale story. And I thought we were going to be together forever, but things didn't really work out. I think she ultimately wanted to be with somebody that had a little bit more of a stable gig. And, we were living here in Nashville together, and I'm out writing songs and playing gigs and, not around. And, it's hard. And I don't hold anything against her. I hope everything is going well for her. But, things didn't work out, and I was pretty heartbroken. And I wrote all these songs. And I just felt like I needed to put them out. I felt like people could relate to them. So I recorded those songs probably 4 years ago. And then COVID hit. And I was like, I don't know if I should release these songs. I don't know what I should be doing with this. So I spent a lot of time kind of, having meetings with different, labels and publishers and different people that I thought could maybe, see this as a project and help me get it out there on a bigger scale. And then ultimately it just came down to like a year ago now. I was like, I just got to put this stuff out. I'm really proud of it. I think it sounds great. It's just time for me to put it out. So I just did every 6-week release schedule. I started doing a song every 6 weeks. And once all 6 songs were out, they were under the umbrella of Polaroids, the EP, and they're in chronological order. So you could listen to the EP and it tells the story of me going through this hard time and us breaking up and then moving on from the breakup. So it's my personal story, but it's a broad, it's something that most people could relate to that have gone through, had different relationships in their life. So for me, that's sort of like, it was like a one and done thing. I'm probably not going to put out music that sounds or feels like that. Again, it was a certain period of my life. And the way that I make music is, it's very personal to me. It's supposed to be telling stories that I've experienced, that I know. They say write what you know. So all the songs that I put out are things that I personally write, either by myself or with co-writers, and things that I either experience or overhear in conversation, or any of that sort of inspiration. And so Polaroids for me is really just like that chapter of my life when I was 24, 25 years old. Going through my first real breakup and having to move out of this little apartment. I was there alone for 2 months after she moved out. And that Girl Next Door is a song. It was the last song released for Polaroids. And it talks about essentially we had this perfect life. Everybody thought everything was perfect. And then, I became the guy that you don't love anymore. And you're the girl next door, but in our own apartment. I was moved into the guest room. So it's a really personal little EP. I'm really proud of it. I love the way it sounds. And it's cool for me because it's like something I'll always be able to look back to and be like that, this is a very important time in my life. And that's the music and the stories around it.
Yeah. The music is, and like you said, it's a 6-song cycle. Yep. I think I've got it figured out that the first 3 songs are kind of about the split.
Yep.
And then the final 3 songs are kind of about you kind of coming out of it and deciding if you're ready to especially Till I'm Done Loving You seems to me like the pivot point. That's the 3rd song, and it seems like you're talking, which you don't really hear, but this is what was interesting to me about specifically about that song. A lot of songs you hear are breakup songs, or I'm in love with somebody, or somebody cheated on me, or I cheated on somebody. Mm-hmm. But you don't really hear too many songs about someone who feels like they're ready to move on. Like they, in your lyrics, you talk about you can tell this other person that you love them and that you can tell them what you think they want to hear, but you're still not ready to do that.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, that's the truth. That's how I felt, and that's how I like to write music. I think that's the way to best connect with people. Is if you're honest and you're vulnerable and you're transparent. And that song is exactly what you said. It was a pivot point. I had met somebody so shortly after that breakup, like maybe 3 or 4 months after. And I was with my ex for, like I said, but I don't know, it was like probably 5 or 6 years. So I had been, not single for so long, and with somebody I thought I was going to spend my whole life with. It like we had broken up, and it was only like 3 or 4 months, and I met this new person, and that's kind of how I felt. And then that's what Nervous is the next song. Nervous was me saying, you know what, forget this, forget trying to protect myself and forget trying to build up these emotional walls. Like, this person's amazing. Who cares? It's only been 4 months or whatever it is. Like, I can't lose this opportunity with this amazing person. And now I've been together with her, my girlfriend, for 5 years. So Nervous ended up being a song where I wrote it at that point where, oh my God, I met this person and I don't know if I'm ready to be vulnerable with somebody again.
Yeah. But then you've got that key lyric in there, but you're worth it.
But you're worth
so
it.
So it's about kind of pushing your chips back onto the table.
Yep.
Right. Because again, Nervous is a very vulnerable song, but it's a hard rocking song. I mean, I'm a sucker for well-produced music. And Nervous kind of has that, like when the song kicks in, it's just a full-on wall of sound, which I really enjoy. Like what's great about this 6-song cycle is all the songs kind of have a different feel to them. And Nervous is kind of, it's got that trepidation to it, but then it builds up into, it's almost like you're building up into psyching yourself up into, I can do this. You're worth it. I might get hurt again, but this is life, right? This is what happens in life. You can't just cut everything off.
100%. And that's that's one of my favorite things I think that is my favorite sounding song on the EP. It just has great energy and, the harmonies and the background vocals came out so great, and the guitars, everything. I mean, I'm so blessed to be able to work with super talented musicians. And my producer, Bobby, that I work with, like I'm pretty much at his house every day. We really nailed that one, and we nailed all of them, but that one just has like a certain energy that's just this hits the emotion, I think, perfectly.
Yeah. I think all of them do. I think that, as you said, the songs are in chronological order, so we're going on that trip with you through these things. And Girl Next Door is a pretty up tempo song. It's kind of almost like a statement of here's how I feel. And then Baltimore kind of brings down the tone. It's kind of like, now you're alone.
Yeah.
And what do I do?
Yeah.
I'm here and you're there.
Exactly. And Baltimore is one of those things where that was another honest and transparent thing, because I guess you could listen to it in two different ways, but you could think that I'm singing with a tongue in cheek. I hope you're happy in Maryland, but I know I never really held anything against my ex-girlfriend, and I truly did want her to find happiness. Like, it was one of those things where it just didn't really work out anymore. And I feel like that doesn't happen enough in breakups. I feel like a lot of them just end so poorly. And that, people like they hate each other, this or that, I still haven't talked to her ever since, but like, I truly did want her to find happiness, and, I think she has. And I think that's a cool, like very vulnerable, transparent aspect of that song that kind of makes it unique in a way.
Well, that leads me to you open the door for the next question for me.
All
then
right.
Is you said you haven't spoken to your ex, so there was no communication like, hey, I'm writing these songs and some of them are about you. Is it okay? Or, was there any trepidation about you putting this kind of stuff out there that is so personal?
There would have been if there was like any sort of like animosity in the songs, but I personally don't feel that there is. It's just I don't know. It's sort of one of those Taylor Swift things, I guess. It's like you write your songs about the things that you went through with that person, but like unless you're like a close family member or a close friend of mine, no one would even know who that person is. So really, the music is for the listener to relate to in their own way. That's what's important to me. I haven't, honestly, this is probably the first time that I've ever publicly like gone into the actual details of these songs, because, there's a lot of artists that I love that kind of leave it up to interpretation. But yeah, I never really worried about it. For me, it's just, just being honest, and that's it,
Now, did these songs come in any type of order? I mean, did you start writing when you met your, the person that you're currently with? You had some songs already written? Was like Baltimore already written, or did these kind of start when you started a new relationship? Like, can you give the timeline of in order, out of order, and then you had to assemble them? Or
Baltimore was the first one. I wrote that probably in that whatever it was 4 to 5 month span between relationships. Same with Till I'm Done Loving You. And Nervous was the first one I wrote when I was with now my current girlfriend. We've been together for 5 or 6 years, planning on getting married, saving up for
Hey, congratulations.
thank you. Yeah. But Nervous was the first one that I wrote like while she was in my world. Then Wasted Wine came from, we had already moved in together by that point that I wrote Wasted Wine. That song is really like, that's why it's the last song. Cause it's like, we've met each other and like, we're having such a good time that, we can't even finish a bottle of wine before we go off and, so
it's the happy ending.
It's the happy ending.
That's, I mean, and that's what's so great about this cycle is it completes the cycle of, starting out, not knowing what, you're kind of like, what just happened? I'm not sure. I'm just a guy now to, going through these emotions. And then at the end, it's kind of like, here I am again, I'm happy and things are going good.
Absolutely.
So
I think every great movie, every great, film has to have a good happy ending.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, when you go through it and you listen to it, it is like a story, and it is, there are things that are universal. There, most people have had a breakup in their life, either the one that did the breaking up or the one that was broken up with. And there's those feelings, sometimes you feel like you got punched in the stomach and you don't know what's going on. And how do I process this? So, I appreciate that you were able to kind of put a lot of these things in here, but then again, like I said, some of them are unique to you, but maybe, or you think they're unique to you, but other people have gone through the same thing. So Kurt, I mean, this is just a great set of songs to kind of go through and listen to. And like I said, they all sound great. Each one, like on Baltimore, when that lap steel hits, it's kind of, you're tugging at the heartstrings. Like I put it at the right time. It doesn't start in the beginning. Like that lap steel just kind of comes in, and it's like, oh boy, here we go.
Exactly. That's one of my favorite things about creating music is, even yesterday I wrote a song, and creating music is, and as a writer, like how is the music going to affect the listener in how they're interpreting the lyrics? So like if you have a sad song like that, having those chords that feel like the story and having that pedal steel come in at the right time and like all of that stuff is so much fun. Like that's kind of like the fun part for me, is creating that. So I'm glad you picked up on that. And it's, I'm really proud of how that all came out.
Yeah. So when you go into the studio, do you have most of that stuff like prearranged in your mind, or is there a collaborative thing of, well, here's the structure, guys, here's kind of where my head is at, and then do you kind of, is there a collaboration there, or are you coming in more fully formed with everything?
I definitely have like an idea in my head of like where I want it to be, but honestly, I can't really even come up with some of the stuff that my buddies come up with that are the musicians. My buddy Sam Hunter plays a bass and all the guitar parts on pretty much all of my songs. And he's become one of the most in-demand session musicians here in town. But, we'll listen to the songs together in the studio, and, he'll chart them out and we'll just get rolling. I mean, we'll start playing it down, and he'll just like, whatever flows out of him is just like that. Yeah. I'll be like, yes, let's keep that. We're like, what if we did this or that? And like, it's definitely a collaborative effort. But I definitely give like guidelines and kind of explain like what it's supposed to feel like ahead of time, just to give them a direction. But once once Sam or my buddy Ryan and Bobby, the producer, and whoever's playing on it, once they get going, it's like, these guys are so talented, and they've moved to this town to do this exact thing. So it's like, it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to do it with them. And just to watch them work is like, I mean, that's half the fun. It's just, oh my God, like you're a freak, dude. Like, how'd you just come up with that?
Did any of the songs on Polaroids start out as one thing in your mind, but then evolve to something totally different once you got it into the studio and started collaborating? Or were they all pretty close, but then you just needed those little sparks?
I think they're all pretty close. I think they all turned out pretty much as, how I would hope they would turn out. I guess I have enough discretion over the recording process so that they don't go like totally awry. But there was never any part where people, the guys that we were working with, there wasn't any moment where anybody like didn't know what direction we were supposed to go in. We all kind of understood the goal and we nailed it. So I don't really think so. But I think there are times where where that can be the best thing to happen to a song. But as far as these 6, I don't think so. Kind of had it all in order.
Why name the EP Polaroids?
The way I thought about it was, I guess I had taken I've gotten into film photography over the last like year and a half, and I have like a couple of really cool old 80s film cameras, 35 millimeter cameras and Polaroid camera, whatever. And I was just having fun with the Polaroid pictures, just like taking pictures with my friends and stuff. And it kind of hit me like, what if I made a Polaroid picture that kind of like spoke to the concept of each song as the single cover. And then I was like, well, that would make sense because each song is really just like a snapshot in time of my life. 65 is living together, is a snapshot of me living together with my ex-girlfriend and us breaking up while we were in the same apartment. Baltimore is a snapshot in time of when she went away, when she moved away. Like each song is a little snapshot. So I was like, you know what? I want to paint a picture with this EP. What better name it? Just Polaroids.
Yeah. Cool.
That's kind of how I came up with that.
Cool. You said you posted on Facebook that you finally feel like you're making the music you're meant to make. How so? What's different now?
I'm working on a new batch of songs.
Okay.
I think a lot of this, long story short, a lot of moving to Nashville, or you didn't even have to move here, but a lot of being an artist is the journey. And you see a lot of artists that kind of, especially, the TikTok and whatever, that they didn't really work it out. They didn't go through the motions of discovering who they are. And they might have one song blow up, but then like, what's next, right? And I never really wanted that to happen to me. And, it might've been easier to, I had opportunities to go on some of these TV shows, American Idol, The Voice, this or that. But like, for me, it's always been like, I feel like discovering what you have to say as an artist is the most important thing. And for me, that's been like, that's been a great part of my journey. I mean, it hasn't always been easy. It hasn't always been profitable, but, looking back, I'm like, I don't feel like I've made any mistakes. And discovering who you are as an artist takes time, and it takes, you have to go out and play. You have to connect with people. You have to travel. You have to do all the things you need to do to figure out like what you're really here to be. And for me, I feel like I've had that revelation of like who I actually am and what I'm supposed to make probably in the last like 6 months. And that's why I said earlier in the podcast that like Polaroids is probably like a one and done type of thing musically for me, because now I'm so confident in my direction. And I guess 6 months ago, I realized a lot of the, a lot of kind of what I've been missing is like, Kurt, whatever. Yeah, people will say, oh, you have a great voice, you have great songs, but like, what is it? Like, what's the thing? Like, who are you supposed to be? And, in the last 6 months, I've really realized that, what I love outside of music is the ocean and in my home state of Florida, and all the stories that I've, all the fishing stories that I have, and like meeting, the salty bartenders, and like, not just all that kind of stuff, but like my coastal roots is where I seek so much and find so much inspiration. And that's where I'm going now. Like it's like 65, which just came out. That's the first song of this kind of new direction that I'm going into. I feel like some of my favorite artists ever, the main inspirations for this kind of new direction are the people that I listen to every day. I think that's like the main part of like this revelation I had 6 months ago was like, wait a minute, you're making music that like, sure, I'm so proud of it. And sure, they're my own personal stories, but like I wouldn't necessarily go and like get in my truck and listen to that kind of music. The music that I listen to when I get in my truck is like, Jimmy Buffett and Jack Johnson and some John Mayer and some Kenny Chesney and, some reggae bands. Like, Bob Marley's probably my favorite artist of all time. Bands like Steel Pulse and Revolution. And there's just so much music that inspires me, classic rock, like the Eagles, which is a huge inspiration for the way 65 sounds. So for me, I'm like, you know what? Like, I need to start making music that I want to make for myself, that I would want to listen to when I get in my truck. So that's where it's coming down to now is I'm working on this whole batch of songs, and I just finished recording another one called Smooth that I'm super excited about. It's essentially about a guy who had something bad happen to him, whether it was a divorce or lost his job. And he said, you know what, screw this. I'm going to drive down to the Florida Keys, fill my truck up with gas and go down where the waters of life are a little bit more smooth. And, that's a song that I'm really, really excited to put out. And then another song that I just wrote, we're in the process of recording. I got to go to the studio today. I was in Costa Rica fishing in January in a marlin tournament. And I had met this older gentleman who's a legendary fisherman. And, we were looking at all these huge boats in the marina. We were fishing on a 68-foot Viking that week, big sport fish boat. And we're looking at the marina and hanging out, having a drink. And I'm like, man, this is incredible being able to be down here and fish these big boats because, I grew up fishing on my little 18-foot center console. And, I want one of these someday. And then he stopped me and he goes, you catch fish on your boat? And I'm like, yeah, I've been catching tons of fish. I could probably caught, over 250 sailfish just on my little boat, tunas, mahi-mahis, whatever. And he goes, all right, you have fun on your boat? I'm like, absolutely. He says, you love your boat? I'm like, yeah, man. And he goes, enjoy it. Enjoy what you have. Because at the end of the day, there's always a bigger boat. And I was just like, oh my God, I have to write that song. That's so great. So we wrote the song called Bigger Boat. And so that's the next one that I'm working on recording. And I guess if I could sum it up, my new direction is really kind of tapping into my coastal roots and like the things that I really love and the music that I really like to listen to. And, Jimmy Buffett, he passed way too soon. I'm a big fan of his music and the way he tells stories. And he has this, this coastal theme, that kind of is a vein through not every single song that he has, but a lot of his music. And for me, I never really realized, but I have that same thing. Like if you were to look at the catalog of unreleased music that I have, it's like 80% of them are those sorts of stories. And, I feel like I feel like my generation doesn't have that voice. And so it's kind of my goal to be that voice for my generation. So that's kind of where I'm going. I've never been more excited about where I'm going. I've never felt more in tune with myself, and I've never felt like the music that I'm creating could be any more me than it is now. So it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like, oh my God, I have this whole new thing that I'm excited to do. And, people like my dad and a lot of my fans, kind of for the last few years, I've always been poking at hey man, that's my favorite stuff you do. Why don't you do more of that? And I think a lot of it was when I first moved here, I worked with a lot of, different people that were in the industry, and you kind of listen to what they say because you're hungry and you're an artist. And you're like, I want to make it. And a lot of them kind of steered me away from doing that music. They were like, you're going to get compared to other artists from Florida that are, whatever, you should be your own thing. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't follow my gut. And that's part of the journey. And that's part of the discovering who you are as an artist. And I'm really happy. I wouldn't change a thing about my story and where I've gone and what it's taken me to realize this and come to this conclusion. So like I said, I feel like I have something to say now, and I know what direction I'm supposed to be in. So it's kind of a sandwich though, because I have put out songs that are in this vein. And Sunshine State of Mind, it's the summer song I put out a couple years ago. That song has over 200 million impressions on TikTok. People love that song. They love the music video. And for me, it's I drifted away from that, and now I'm going back to it, but with a kind of a new angle of adding some more of original kind of sounds, incorporating more of the reggae music that I love, and incorporating more kind of the old, the 70s Jimmy Buffett honky tonk stuff that he had. Doing the stuff that I just really love, making that music, making music for me and hoping that people love it. And if they don't, great. I have a bunch of music that I love. That's it.
Yeah. It's ironic that industry people would tell you need to be yourself or something unique when it's something that's not in your wheelhouse or something that you feel.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I've always said when people have influences and you have a varied amount of influences. I wasn't expecting you to say Jack Johnson.
Oh, he's my number one most listened to artist on Spotify.
I love Jack Johnson. So it's interesting, and everybody processes influences differently. So you could be influenced by the same four people that someone, another artist might be, but the music might sound very different because you're taking different aspects of what connects to you, and then running it through Kurt's process, and then when it comes out, it is something unique. I think it'll always be something unique unless you're specifically trying to say, I want to make a song that sounds like X. You know? but when you're running it through your process, I think no matter what, you're going to get something that's uniquely you because you're pulling different things from it. Now, you mentioned Jimmy Buffett. He figures into 65,
Absolutely.
right? So why don't you tell me a little bit about how the title and how it relates to Jimmy Buffett?
Yeah, so it's kind of a strange thing, but growing up in South Florida and being like a diehard fisherman and someone who, was on boats every day and someone who free dived after school and spearfished and whatever, like spending all my time on the water when I wasn't making music growing up. I didn't really listen to him at all, like in my youth. Not really much in like high school, not really much in college. And then like when I moved to Nashville, I got kind of homesick and started wanting more of that music and started getting into Jimmy. But it really wasn't until like, I don't know, maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago that I really started like dive in and be like, what the hell have I been missing my whole life? Like these songs this is my life. Like this is a soundtrack of my life that I didn't even know about it. And a lot of me like falling in love with his music was I was in Publix a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And there was this Life magazine and it was the Jimmy Buffett edition. And I'm like, I feel like I have so much in common with this man. And I don't really know much about him. I don't really know that many of his songs. Like I've been playing a few of his songs like forever. I've been playing Trying to Reason with Hurricane Season and A Pirate Looks at 40 for 10 years. I've been playing, like I know some of his music, but I never really dove into his catalog. So I was like, I'm going to buy this magazine. Sure enough, I leave Publix. I look at my receipt and I'm like, $19.99 or whatever it was for this magazine. I'm like, holy shit, like, I better get something out of this thing. Like I hadn't bought a magazine since I was like 10 years old. Like I didn't know they were $20. So I go home and I'm reading it and I flip to this page and there's a quote and it says, I don't believe in waiting until you're 55 to enjoy your times. And I was like, man, that's powerful because that's sort of like been my MO. I'm rolling the ultimate dice with my entire life, chasing this crazy, absurd dream that I always compare it to being a Major League Baseball. Like there's 30 teams and there's a 40 man on each team. So you got 1,200 active Major League Baseball players, 1,200. It's impossible to become a Major League Baseball player. How many huge, successful country acts are there? Definitely not 1,200. Like it's hard. The odds are against you. And, so you're rolling the dice and I don't believe in waiting till you're 55 to enjoy your times. To me means, don't wait till you're retired or don't push off till someday to try to be the version of yourself that you want to be or travel someplace that you want to go or totally reinvent yourself or try an oyster for the first time. Like it could mean anything, but just don't push things off that you want to do. Like figure out how to do it. And, I sat down and I wanted to write the song and I felt like, that quote was, I think it was in the 70s. And I was like, well, people ain't retiring at 55 anymore. I got to add 2 years to this thing. So that's how what inspired me to write 65 and kind of set me on this journey of like really falling in love with his music. And I still hear songs of his now that he has a ton of songs. I haven't gone through all of them. And I heard one the other day. It's called My Lovely Lady. I heard it for the first time and I was like, oh my God, like this song sounds like a song that I wrote. Like the first line is, when I pay my bills, I'm going to leave these Tennessee hills and get back to the sea. And it's like, that's how I feel. Like I absolutely love it here in Nashville. And like, I will always hopefully have a home here, but I miss being in Florida. I miss being by the coast so much every single day. That kind of inspires a lot of the music that I write.
Yeah.
So,
as a fellow parrot head up north.
Yeah.
I'll give you my two favorite Buffett albums. Last Mango in Paris.
Yep. I have it on vinyl right here.
And Me Too. And Riddles in the Sand.
Yep.
Are like my two favorite Buffett albums.
Yeah.
Just a little piece of trivia. One of the reasons why I got into Jimmy Buffett is he was on, when Last Mango in Paris came out, he was on like The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson or something like that. Yep. And he was talking about the song Halloween in Tijuana. Mm-hmm. And he said he wanted a bullwhip. He needed the sound of a bullwhip is pretty prominent in that song.
Oh.
And he said, well, I don't know anybody that uses a bullwhip. It's Harrison Ford.
Oh, wow.
Because he's like, who uses a bullwhip in the late 80s? Indiana Jones does. And he actually contacted, and if you look at the liner notes, you find it, bullwhip by Harrison Ford. I'm like, I have to get this album. I think I had his greatest hits already. But then I went and got Last Man Go in Paris just because I was a big Indiana Jones fan and all that kind of. I was like, it was so novelty to me. But then I just got into. They kind of opened up the world, So it's funny what things trigger people to get into to try different things, and then it just opened up the world of Jimmy Buffett to me, and I just fell in love with that vibe and that the kind of sound that you're going for is that kind of easy but storytelling, but accessible and also universal. I think a lot of people feel in the song, like I said, in the material you're writing, even Polaroids, all that stuff people have felt and they've gone through. But again, putting your spin on it and looking at it through your lens makes it something totally unique, Kurt.
Yeah, that's my biggest goal. And, as an artist is, being so honest with myself that you can't miss with, as far as connecting with the audience. Because if it's true for me, it's got to be true for other people. It's when you're not transparent and you're not vulnerable and you're not honest with yourself, then I feel you can fall flat in your goal as an artist, right? You could write music for yourself and never release it to the world, and that's totally fine. But for me, I've always wanted to connect with people and travel the world playing music, and that's what's important to me is having an effect on other people is why I got into music in the first place. I could tell you the story. It's sort of a long story. It's not really that long.
That's okay. We've got time. We've got as much time as you have.
The long story of why I even do this is when I was 4 years old, I started playing classical piano. My dad got me lessons because he loves classic rock and southern rock and country. And he always I guess he saw at a young age. I was singing when I was 2. He's like, he's got it. He has music in him and he has a great ear and he can sing a little bit. And he always wanted me to be a musician. And he loves Elton John and Billy Joel and all these people. That he was like, well, all the best people I know, they got their, they started off playing classical music. It's the foundation of their musical knowledge. So from 4 to 18, that's all I did. 3 hours a day, all state competitions and stuff, Chopin and Bach and whatever. But when I was 13 or 14, that's when he was like, hey, you love all the music I love. I loved classic rock growing up and country and southern rock. I wasn't really listening to what all my friends were listening to. I was kind of a weird outcast. So I was like, you're right. I need to start playing some Elton John. So I started to learn how to play and sing. And I was slowly teaching myself how to do this new thing, pop music. And we had a family friend. Her name is Terry. She was an awesome lady. She lived, not too far from us. And her daughter was my little sister's best friend. She was a single mom. She'd come over our house all the time and just sit on the couch and listen to me play and sing. And she was the first person besides my parents, of course, to think I was any good, that had anything, any talent. And she'd come over, have a glass of wine, listen to me play while her daughter played around with my sister. And she had breast cancer. And then she beat it. So everyone was happy, whatever, but it must have came back without anybody else knowing. And she didn't tell anybody. She was not anyone who wanted any pity or anything like that. She was a life of a party kind of lady. So one day she came over and I'm on the piano bench and she goes, Kurt, come here. I got to ask you a favor. So I hop up off the bench. I'm 14 or 15 at the time. Hop up off the bench. I go into my kitchen and my mom is in the far corner, crying her eyes out. And I don't know. I've only seen my mom cry a couple of times. I was like, what the hell? And I'm like, what's up? And Terry goes, could you do me a huge favor? I said, yeah, of course. What would you need me to do? I could walk your dog, anything. And she goes, would you please do me the honor of singing at my service?
Oh, wow.
She had terminal cancer and I guess didn't want to tell anybody until she knew it was the end. And I burst into tears. I was like, of course, I don't even know what to say. It was really a horrible day. So I was she left, and over the next week, I was I'm figuring out what am I going to play? And she loved when I played Candle in the Wind by Elton John. And she loved all the Elton John songs I played. I don't know if she loved Candle in the Wind, but she loved Elton John. And she loved when I played Imagine by John Lennon. So I learned Imagine, memorized it. And then I wrote my first song ever, which was I rewrote Candle in the Wind, all the lyrics, but for her and her life. And it just so happened that her middle name was Jean. It was Terry Jean. It fit perfectly in the song. It was wild. So my dad and I wrote that together. But at the time I was playing all these classical music, like competitions, it's like a black room. You can't see any of the judges. And I'm playing like 30-page things by memory. And I had like multiple, competitions in a row. I'd messed up and I lost my place in the song. And I flunked out of the competition. I'd never done that. I don't know if it was puberty. I don't know what it was, but I started like losing it. I started getting performance anxiety. So I was super, super, super nervous to do this. I go and see her one last time before she passed away. And she said, "Thank you so much for doing this, but this is the greatest gift I could ever give you." She said that to me. And I'm like, what? Like, this is horrible. Like, one of my best friend's moms is just dying. I love this person. Like, what do you mean? Like, this is the greatest gift I could ever give you. But I couldn't get that out of my head. She ends up passing away not long after that. The day of the service comes. I didn't know when I was going to play or what I was going to be. It was a huge church in Boca Raton. And I opened up the service. I played Imagine. Everybody loved it. And I got through it shaking and crying, but I didn't mess up like I had been at the competitions. Sat back down on the pews. And, my whole town was there, like hundreds of people, my whole family, all my friends, my principal, the school was there. The mayor was there. So the service goes through and then they say, now Kurt Ciencio is going to come up to sing a final song to close out the ceremony, his rendition of Candle in the Wind for Terry. So I go up there and I start playing and singing. I'm crying, I'm shaking, but I'm not messing up. And once people once I get halfway through the first verse and people hear the words and it's like a custom written song, like for her, I always say like the story. It sounded like every single person in there all at once simultaneously watched their dog get hit by a car. Like it was this like cacophony of like screaming, crying, like emotional, like pretty much like if everybody hadn't really like cried or whatever, like that hard during the ceremony, at this moment, it all was built up and they released. And it was this like really intense like moment. And I was shaking, but I got through it and it was perfect. And every single person there came up to me afterwards and was like, that was one of the most powerful things I've ever seen and heard. Like, how did you do that? This and that. Like my dad still says it's like one of the proudest days of his life. And from that moment, it was like one of the weirdest things and like the thing that keeps me going every single day through this career. Cause it's not easy. And it seems like it's getting harder and harder with as many, I said the TikTok thing and oversaturation and like whatever, but it keeps me going is this thing of like in that moment where everyone was coming up to me, I heard her words. This was the greatest gift I could ever give you. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And since that day, I haven't stopped. And this is what I'll do forever. And I'll be chasing that ever since. And for me, that's the thing is like that connection I had with everybody in that church that day is what I chase in every single song. Even if it's a happy song, it's like, I work really hard not to write cheap lyrics. I work really hard not to make cheap music. Like to me, music is a powerful thing and important thing. And I carry that with me every day. And so that's like why you asked me earlier if I got nervous when I was putting on the show in Key West. Like I don't get nervous because after that, that was the two-sided thing. One, that was the greatest gift she could ever give me was now I knew what my life's purpose was. And two, I'll never, ever get nervous again. And I really haven't been ever since. I mean, if you can make it through that, you can make it through anything.
Yeah, it sounds like that's a powerful story, and it seems like Terry knew. Terry knew.
I don't know how she knew.
She knew before you that you were going to rise to this, to eulogize her this way through music, and that you would step up to it and get it done for her. So, wow, that's a fantastic story. As we close out, I have just 3 more questions for you. First up. What's coming up next? You're working on a lot of singles. Is that going to be put together into something larger?
Yeah. So I guess I have a music video coming out this Thursday, which is I don't even know exactly what
30th? Yeah.
The 30th.
Yeah. And
it's for a music video for 65 that we just shot down in the Florida Keys. And we shot other parts of it here in the studio, actually singing the song. So I'll give people a little bit of an inside view into, the studio situation and also get to see me down in my element down in the Keys and kind of living the life that I speak of in the song. Traveling is a huge important thing to me and I haven't really been able to do as much of it as I want. And 65 is kind of one of those things, get out there and go see the world type of thing. So that video comes out this Thursday. I have that song Smooth that'll be coming out hopefully this summer. I have a song Bigger Boat that I'm working on the vocals today that'll be coming out this summer. So there's 2 more songs at least coming out this summer. And I probably have another, 10 or 12 songs that I want to record. And the way I want to do it these days is kind of, you give every song its moment. So I do the 6-week release schedule, and then at the end when the last one's out, similar to how Polaroids, it'll all be under the umbrella of an album, a full album called Better with a Breeze, which is the title of one of my favorite songs of the project. So yeah, a lot of music on the way. I'm spending a ton of time in the studio, kind of honing in this new sound. Smooth has like a really fresh, laid back, beachy sound, but in my own way. Just like if you could somehow pull from Jimmy Buffett and also Bob Marley and also Jack Johnson, bring it through my body of music and spit it out, like what would that be? And that's what I think it is. So it's a unique sound, which is what I'm trying to create. I don't really want to make music that everyone's heard before. So that's what I'm chasing, and that's what I have planned. And it's, like I said before, I've never been more excited.
Cool. I'm excited to hear it as well. Final 2 questions. This is one question, but it's in 2 parts.
Okay.
Favorite, least favorite thing about touring?
My favorite thing is definitely seeing new cities, getting to try the food there. Every single town has like their thing, and also just meeting people who connect through my music. It's crazy, like getting to meet people who love your songs that you've never ever seen or talked to before, and you have an instant relationship with somebody because, like I said, if you're creating music that's true to yourself and you're telling your own story, and some person in Kentucky heard that song, like each other in a way. So that's my favorite part. The least favorite part is probably being away from my dog and my girlfriend. She comes with me a lot of the time, but yeah, probably just being away from my house and like just the creature comforts of home and being able to cook my own food and like, but that's all fine. I ain't worried about that. Like I want to be out there playing 160 shows a year, traveling around the world, traveling around the country, and meeting people, making connections, and telling the stories. I mean, that's that for me. I don't write a song. I don't write 2 songs a day or a song a day like a lot of my buddies do. Like a lot of my friends, they write every single day. Most of them they're writers. They're not really pursuing the artist thing. And like for me, I don't really write that many songs a week because like the way I see it, I'd rather do like a quality over quantity thing. And for me, you gotta inhale life to exhale good music. And I try to have a good balance of, inhaling life and living, and, being out on the road and playing shows is a lot of that because you get to see so many things and hear so many things and meet so many people that like, that's a really big thing to like inspire new songs. So yeah.
Cool. Final question.
Yep.
Kurt, imagine that we live in an alternate reality where there's no streaming Spotify or iTunes or Apple, and you're going on vacation and you can only take 3 CDs, albums, whatever it is. You can only take 3 with you. What 3 records are you taking with you to listen to?
I'm probably going to take, I got to take Eagles' Greatest Hits record, one with the deer skull on the front or whatever it is. I probably have to take Meet the Moonlight by Jack Johnson. It's become one of my favorite albums. And I definitely have to take Legend by Bob Marley.
There you go.
I guess that's kind of a cop-out because 2 of those are like greatest hits compilations.
Yeah, well, I didn't say, you know what? I didn't say no greatest hits, so you circumvented, you skirted the rules, so it works.
Yeah, I could also throw Songs You Know by Heart on there too if we're gonna do greatest hits compilations. Yeah, probably those. Just those are my favorite records. I find myself listening to them pretty much every single day.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're going to drop, like I said in the beginning, we're going to drop a link in the show notes to Kurt's Spotify. We'll also put the Facebook, we'll also put the TikTok in there. So go and check him out. Follow him on all of those platforms because he gives you different stuff. He's got a little cooking, a little music, but a lot of great music, actually. Kurt, it's been a pleasure and an honor to speak with you. Like I said, when I heard your music, I immediately was just connecting to what you're doing and the sounds and the way you're doing it. So Wish you all the luck in the world. Looking forward to anything else you're doing, and I'll just put out now open invitation for you to come back whenever you like, whenever you've got something you want to tell us about. You know where I am, so just hit me up, and we look forward to hearing it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. This was really great, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to get back on here again sometime soon.
Awesome. That's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well. If you've got a question for Kurt and you send it through us, I'll make sure I get it over to him. Or I'll just tell you, naughty, go follow Kurt. Cut out the middleman and get right to him. So that'll do it for Kurt. This has been Dean. We'll catch you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.